Hello and welcome to On a Grand Scale podcast. This is where real conversations about what it takes to scale meaningful work happen. My name is Nyoni. I'm the founder of Grand Scale. We help founder-led organizations to build systems that allow them to grow beyond their founders. The core idea here is that we see that many organizations don't stall because of lack of passion or lack of energy of the founder of the team. They stall because systems haven't caught up with the vision. And so our podcast here is all about leadership, about strategy, finance, governance, and the hard decisions that it takes to have real growth. And today, I am so pleased to welcome Timothy Gambiza. Timothy Sheunopa Gambiza, the MD of Sybaweb Connect. Um, this is a dynamic voice in both the boardroom and the body of Christ, and that's why he's been invited today. He is multifaceted um, because he serves also as a regional pastor of God's favorite house church, heading the Southern African region. Uh, God's favorite house church has branches in Cape Town and in Johannesburg. He's got many years of executive experience, particularly in IT transformation, and a deep understanding of cybersecurity, as seen in many invites that he gets to speak on the subject. So, from corporate strategy to kingdom assignments, Tim is known for igniting minds, shifting atmospheres, and building leaders. All right, Tim, welcome.
Thank you. No, it's a pleasure and honor to be here.
Fantastic. So let's start right from the beginning. Here it's we are easy. We want to start from where everything starts. Before Cyberweb Connect, we want to go down to, where it all started. Who is Tim? Where were you born? Where did you grow up? And how did that shape the person that you have become today?
Sure. Thank you. So Tim is originally from Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
I was born Gobulawayo, going to Ziyatung,
All
and
right.
I lived and grew up there until I was about 4 years old. We moved to a city called Gweru, then eventually to Harare, the capital of Zimbabwe. And grew up in a God-fearing Lutheran family with the ethos of discipline, hard work, the fear of the Lord, and the fear of your parents. Yes, sir.
The fear of your parents. Okay. All right, so you grew up in different cities. At which stage were you moving from one place to the next?
Yes, sir. So yes, sir. So in fact, I actually go to six primary schools, and I think
Jeez.
uh, in the long run, when I look back, that has actually really helped me to assimilate easily or to meet people quite easily because by nature I'm an introvert, but I think circumstances forced me to come out of my comfort zone and out of my shell to actually meet people. Otherwise, I have no friends.
Nah, if you've moved six schools in primary school, you are a forced connector for sure. And tell me more about that upbringing. Your parents, you say, Lutheran. What else? What else about them do you think kind of shaped and built you into what they are? What were they doing?
Sure. So my mom was a teacher,
Uh-huh.
and I think a lot of what I lean into ministry-wise, I think, is coming from the teaching background. In fact, I think my father was also a teacher at some point. He actually helped my mom complete her grade 10 slash O levels. And, teaching is in the family. My dad was also involved in ministries and evangelist, and he still is to this day, planting churches. But corporately, he was involved in freight, fast moving industry, logistics, sea, rail, road. And
Right.
at some point in his journey, he decided, you know what? I'm going to start my own business. He took a package. They gave him, I think, the car he was using, the desk he was sitting on, and a small amount of money. And he started what is called tug van transport, which has, grown to be a move and shaken the Zimbabwean economy, especially in the area of, policy for the logistics sector. He's successfully lobbied for that sector to become a reserve sector. But I'm sharing all of this with you to say I grew up around hard work.
Right.
Hard work was not optional. Hard work was not a lifestyle choice. It was the only way to live and the only way to become a success and to escape the jaws of poverty that were trying to grip us. Because remember, we're growing up in a very difficult time. I mean, hyperinflation. I remember when I was in A level or my last year of school, I think a burger was going for $10 billion or something like that in Zimbabwean dollars. So
Right.
very difficult time to raise kids. I remember there was a time when we had fuel shortages, and 5 liters of fuel had to take me to school. At the time, I was at Hartman House and back home, which was about a 7 to 12 kilometer round trip, if not more, for a whole week. 5 liters of fuel. And I saw a driver drive a vehicle not going past 40 kilometers an hour, shifting gears below 1000 revs somehow,
Neutral the whole way.
neutral on the downhills, goes without saying. So I saw resilience. I saw because not once did we ever get stuck because the fuel ran out. I saw moving ahead when the picture is not clear, and I saw starting something out of nothing. So I think that was my upbringing, and it shaped the man that I am today.
Yeah, you're right about your gift of teaching. I think the very fact I'm asking you the first questions and already you're picking out lessons of hard work, of resilience, of moving ahead even when it's not clear. This is going to be looks like it's a promising it's a promising podcast from what. So primary school is done. You've done your 6 schools. Yes, what happens in secondary? Where are you? And how is that for you?
So interesting story. So I then come out of primary school, assuming, very important word, that I was going to go to private school. I've done a few entrance exams. I've chosen a school. In fact, the school that I think I had chosen at the time was Eaglesville. I was going to go to Eaglesville. And, interesting, about a week before schools open, I go to a church camp. And I come back from that church camp and I go into my room and there's a uniform there, and it's not an Eaglesville uniform. It's a Mazoe High School uniform. Now, you may have no familiarity with these schools whatsoever, but you can already tell from the names that Mazoe is a harder life than Eaglesville. I tried to protest. My parents said, "You are going." It was a Salvation Army all boys mission school,
Right.
run medically by a nurse who had come from the war. So, unless you are dying, you're not going home. You get sick there, he'll give you a cocktail of pills, which you had to take all of them at the same time, failure to do which would result in a beating in your state of sickness. So, very hard times. Marathon days or athletics seasons, you
Yeah.
would run a distance that no one would tell you that how fast should you run? But all you knew was if you did not run enough, if you didn't run fast enough, by the time you come back, dinner will be over. So you'd be going to nighttime study without having eaten. And I'm sure that was close to a 15-kilometer round trip. School ended at 20 to 4, dinner was at 5:30. Do the math. You can't be walking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a baptism of fire, but in it, the beauty of camaraderie, the beauty of it not mattering whether you're the son of a minister or the son of a gardener or the son of a blue collar fellow in a factory or the son of the president. We were all equalized by this uniform. It was a very incredible environment, and some of the relationships I developed in those 4 years are still with me today. And
Mm.
that would be Missouri High School for me, the first 4 years of my high school. Then the last two, my parents had mercy on me because we had struck a deal that if I do 4 years for them, they would give me 2 years of private school. So the last
Okay.
2 years of my high school, I was at Gateway in Harare, where I now learned to at least start holding a conversation with girls because at Mazoya there were no girls in sight. In fact, you would write letters and hope for a response. So, yeah, as it were, all these seasons shaped me for resilience, for leadership, for the necessity of connecting with other human beings. I also played first team hockey. I was one of the worst players in
Okay.
that first, but I was in the first
Okay.
team nonetheless. And that no one can take that away
Okay, it
from me.
didn't
I
start
actually
in Mazoe,
compared.
right? It started
It
in
started with
Gateway.
Mazoya in my last year at Mazoya, where there were not enough
Okay.
hockey sticks and no hockey field. And then at Gateway, that gift, if you want to call it that, started to find a little bit of expression.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And
Eh,
when did the golf start? Okay. Uh
Good question. Golf starts, I think, around 16 years old. I was trying to spend more time with my dad.
okay.
So I started playing golf during that time. And can I also mention, I think it's worth mentioning in my story that at no point did I ever hold a leadership position in my 7 years of primary school or in my 6 years of high school. The only reason I became a leader slash prefect at Gateway was because everyone in A level was a prefect or a leader. So that is the only way that I got elected. So I'm just saying that to say that sometimes leadership is not something that you're born knowing that, hey, I was captain of my team, I did this. I was never a leader. I was never even class monitor.
Okay. Very good point to note. All right. So what were you studying in A level?
So A level, I did mathematics. I have no idea why. I did business studies and I did accounting.
Okay.
Yeah, those are my subjects.
Okay. And then you're done with
Yes, sir.
your A levels. What
Yes,
happens
sir.
next?
So
Tertiary.
because I'd done so well in my AS levels, which is essentially grade 11 or lower sixth form, I'd actually been accepted into UCT with my provisional AS results. So straight after A level, I come to Cape Town and I start a Bachelor of Commerce in financial accounting because at the time I thought I wanted to become a CA. So that's where
Right.
my journey goes, and this is 2009.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah. Tell us, take us through your journey there and any lessons that you teacher kind of feel we
So,
students can get out of it.
so UCT was an interesting place because being intelligent was no longer an advantage. In
Yeah.
fact, there was a conspiracy that the institution implemented a bell-shaped curve, a normal distribution curve on their results. So, in other words, you were not necessarily competing with on virtue of your marks alone, but how well you did relative to your colleagues. Now,
Right.
that has never been proven to me. I don't know whether it was true or not, but I will say this for sure. If you didn't have the brains, you wouldn't be there in the first place. So
Right.
that's the first steep learning curve that I encountered because all of a sudden I was no longer top of the class or thereabouts. I was no longer considered, there are still some things that are happening that are affirming me. I remember in my first year, I won the chess tournament in my residence, which was not a joke. But aside from that, man, I suffered. And I was starting to discover myself. I hit a bit of a rebellious streak because I was just trying to questions with no answers, I suppose, and I looked for the answers in the wrong places. So UCT became a bit of a roller coaster for me. I actually got academically excluded, not once, twice. You can imagine what my parents were going through. But one thing I'll say about that season, it was a season of learning to take responsibility. Because in the seasons of my exclusion, which were a shock and a horror to everyone, because it was obvious that I had what it took to succeed, I learned responsibility. At no point did
Right.
my parents ever say to me, "Oh, you failed, come home." The question was always, "What are you going to do?" And I would say
Mm.
to them, "Okay, I think I'm gonna stay behind and do a short course, try something, work somewhere." At no point during my seasons in the wilderness academically did I ever pack my bags to go home. So learning to stay in the fight, learning to stay in the ring, even if you're on the ground,
Yeah.
being on the mat in the ring is still better than someone who's not in the ring. So because when you get up, you're
Mm.
still in the ring.
I
So
like
I think
that.
for
I
me,
like that. Can you repeat that? Being in the
being on the mat, being
mm,
on your back in the ring is
mm,
better than someone who's not in the ring because you can still get up, and the
mm,
moment you get up, you're still in play, you're still in the ring. So, so,
mm,
so I saw my parents seeing me on the mat and not
mm.
immediately trying to intervene to say, "Come back home, we'll make a plan for you," or
Yeah.
"Let's switch city." No, I stayed in that Cape Town
Mm.
until I made something out of my life.
Sure, sure, sure. And I
So,
think
so
that's
that
a
stayed
deep
there.
lesson in adulthood in general, because
Yeah,
usually living in controlled environments, primary, high
yeah,
school, kind of just gives you an idea of what your life would be. But when you go later on, there's so many other things that come into play.
yeah.
And I mean, meeting with failure and all of that becomes one of the things that's critical for anyone
Yes,
to succeed. Okay,
sure.
cool.
So
So,
I definitely wouldn't be here without that season of
right,
what are you gonna do? That season
yeah,
of responsibility, yeah.
right, right,
So
right.
if I can continue from there so that you can
Hmm.
have a place of departure, I then
Sure.
take my credits, tail between my legs. I take them to UNISA. They say, "Oh, you're coming from UCT. We will take you." They take me. I start getting my head screwed on right again. I joined Varsity College because at the time they were still offering UNISA tuition. And
Okay.
a couple years later, I finished with a Bachelor of Accounting Sciences and Management Accounting. But this is like
Mm,
6 years after I started my undergrad. So at that point, I don't want to study again. I don't want to do any
mm.
postgrad. I don't want to do CA, CMA, nothing. I just want to
It's
work
like I'm
now.
done. I'm done. But
I
whilst
just
you
want to
were
get
there,
that.
it looks like you picked up quite a number of courses too, right? At varsity
Yes.
college. Mm,
So correct, because I was now, once you're out of school and you're trying to buy time, I did entrepreneurship, I did
right,
operations management, I think
right,
I did project management, night
right.
school, and now during
Yeah,
the day I would either work because at some point I had a car, so I'd carry people around. At some point I
yeah,
did hospitality industry. I worked for a
sure.
private chef, great
Mm,
exposure as well because we're working in
mm,
these small private parties, whether it's the Cape Bar, whether it's multi-million rand homes or whatever it was. So that was also great exposure.
So now you're taking, charge of your learning experiences and you're choosing what it is that you want to do and how it might help in the future.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Done with that. Take us then into you're done with varsity, professional life, starting to work. What then happens?
So Sybaweb, where I currently am, was my
Right,
second interview. My first interview was for a company that does health bars. And I
right.
remember I was so naive. I mean, I even took my textbook with me to the to the interview to prove that, in case I have a knowledge gap, here's my textbook. And I'm sure they're like, who's this amateur? So Sybaweb is my second interview. As I go for that interview, a friend lends me a car so that at least I look like I'm coming from somewhere. I run into the MD at the door.
Right.
He's not supposed to be in the interview, but he's very polite man, great gentleman. He greets me. I greet him. I'm here for the interview. He says, seeing as though I'm here, let me just sit in your interview. So the
Yeah.
interview is for an accounts administrator post where I'm supposed to report to the GM, who
Right.
was in the interview along with another director. And
Right.
in the MD sitting in that interview, all of a sudden, I end up in a role where I'm his assistant effectively, an executive assistant, if you will. The accounts admin is still in my portfolio, but he literally takes me under his wing, and I now work directly for him,
Wow.
which was a
So you
10-year.
came in for one job and you ended up in two.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's exactly what happened. And baptism of fire, you know what I mean? You sit at the front desk, you're a receptionist, you're the guy who goes to the shops, your back is to your boss, so you can see what's on your screen at all times. I mean, it's not like he was a hard man to work for, but you can't even take a break and check Facebook, nyana. I mean, it's tough, and I'm coming out of school and it's IT and it's things I don't understand, and it's steep learning curve. But you know what? I put my head down and I just began to graft. I just began to graft, and I learned so much until a point came where literally everything that was happening in the company was flowing through my desk, whether it was
Right.
administrative, whether it was financial, whether it was even HR related to an extent, whether it was operational, or whether it was selling related. I remember in that first year, I found myself in Dar es Salaam on a sales trip with one of the sales guys. You know what I mean? So literally being thrown into the deep end, and incredible, incredible experience. You ask yourself, people are asking in the company, what on earth is an accounts administrator doing on a sales trip? I'm sure they wanted to go on the trip instead of me. But hey, deep end stuff and intentional mentorship from that great
Right.
leader who I met at that door 11, 12 years ago.
Okay. Okay. Huh. What do you think are some of the things he saw in you in that interview?
It's an interesting question because I'm in a season right now where I've literally just hired an intern 2 days ago who reminds me of myself in that season. And this
Mm,
intern, he started a soccer team at the age of 16. He's 19 now, just came out of matric. There are no limitations to his imagination.
mm,
I think that's one of the things he saw. Exposure of
mm,
travel.
mm,
What else did he see? Trying and failing at stuff. I wasn't ashamed of saying, guys, this is my journey. I came into school in 2009. I only came out 2015 almost with an undergrad. You know what I mean?
mm,
Uh, I think a family that afforded me an opportunity to try different things and to, like you mentioned, golf earlier, or take
mm,
responsibility for failure, or I had
mm,
an energy about me that was very unbridled, was very untempered by failure. Although I
mm,
had failed, I had a very
mm,
positive outlook to life,
mm,
and the ability of one to literally reinvent themselves. Because by the time I finished school, I was one of those guys who dresses formally to go to uni. I was one of those guys who was the
mm,
first one into the library and the last one out. So very driven, self-starter. I think they saw someone
mm,
who'd been through a bit in life, but had literally taken control of their lives and was of their life and was very keen to make an impact. And another thing I must
mm.
mention, when they asked me what I would like my salary to be, I wouldn't advise this today, but I said you can pay me whatever you want. I'm
mm,
here to learn. I'm here for the experience. And I
mm.
think the job over time has now paid me. But if I tell you my starting salary, you will realize that I probably shouldn't have said what I said at that time.
Well, I think it's Jim Rohn who says something like, don't get a job for what you will earn, but for what you learn out of it,
I
right?
like that.
So sometimes the learning is more of the reward because
Yes, sir.
now the skills and all of that that you got from being an exec PA as well as accounts
Yes.
administrator really changed the rest of your life then. Okay. So, exec PA, accounts administrator. What happens? What takes you from accounts administrator to the next role? I suppose the next one was GM, or the next one was
Yes,
what?
sir. Yes, sir.
What was the progression? And after how many years?
So I think about after 5 years in the company, like I said, everything was now literally running through my desk. There
Mm,
was a lot of understanding and rapport between me and the MD
mm,
at the time,
mm,
to the extent that we were even looking at getting into business together in different industries.
mm,
I'm effectively running the operation, effectively at
mm,
least. He's approaching 60 now, so he wants to start to slow down.
mm,
Some point he stops coming to the office. COVID happens,
mm,
remote work comes. And I think
mm,
when the work is remote, it really separates those who are working and those who look like they're working. So I
mm,
think for me, that season was pivotal because chips fell where they wanted to fall. Some
mm,
people left, some people
mm,
joined, and all of a
mm.
sudden I began to look around. I'd been the person who'd been around for
The
either
longest.
the longest or second to the longest, and the
Mm,
opportunity I grew to I don't want to say the opportunity I grew into the opportunity also in a weird way it grew in me. It emerged by the
mm,
pattern of the work that I was doing, that in fact, am the
mm,
general manager of this company, not in the
mm.
perspective of I got a promotion. It was work I was
Right.
already doing, and the title
Oof.
followed the work. That
Ooh.
makes sense at all.
Ooh. Oh, that's a deep lesson right there. Uh,
Yeah.
it speaks to I'm not just doing this because of my job description.
Yes.
I'm just going to, this is my lane. Stay in your lane.
Yes.
It's like whatever is needed, I'm available to do whatever is needed. And then that
Correct.
means functionally, you may be doing more than what your job requires, but people
Correct.
are not blind. They will see
Yes.
where the work is being done.
Yes. Correct.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So, but what happens? Did the GM leave for you to become the GM from that point? What actually took
Yeah.
place?
So, so are you talking about GM or MD now?
No, so from accounts administrator uh
Yes,
plus exec PA, what was the next
yes,
thing that happened?
yes. So yeah, that's GM. So that's what I'm explaining that the GM at the time, some people leave during COVID. Other
Including
people
the
get
GM.
shunted into more technical roles, but
Right,
it was almost like there was a vacuum and there was no GM, if you will. But
right.
I worked myself into that
Into the
title,
position.
if that makes sense at
Okay,
all. Yeah. So that's
I
literally
get you.
how that happened. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And so this is 5 years in.
Yeah. This is
Okay.
5 years in. Yeah.
And then what changes between these two periods now when you are actually having the title GM? Do you
Mm.
continue with the exec PA job?
A good question because um, someone said that you must not delegate what you've not done yourself.
Right.
Because there are a lot of blind spots, there are a lot of unknowns, there are a lot of inefficiencies that reside within a system where the leader who's delegating has no idea what he's
Ah,
delegating. In
that
fact,
is deep.
um,
That is
even
deep.
the even the ability to manage expectations. If someone says to you, this
Mm,
thing will take 3 weeks and you've never done it before,
sure,
you
sure.
will not appreciate that they're doing a 6 month job in 3 weeks. And on
Mm,
the other end of the spectrum, you also won't realize that they're doing a 3 day job in 3 weeks.
right.
So yeah, I mean, in organizational structure, there was a person who was now doing my job,
Okay.
but I was still doing my job. And to the extent that the MD or the CEO had to lock me out of certain systems, he had to lock me out of the accounting system, he had to limit my permissions in certain systems because if he didn't do that, I was going to keep doing the job. And he was saying, Tim, I need you to take a step back and start looking at the company from not an outside in perspective, but almost like a top of the mountain, like a mosaical perspective, as opposed to be a Joshua perspective where you're boots on the ground. Have a look at us from a strategic perspective and look at the gaps, look at the opportunities. Start getting into sales, start getting into a business continuity, start getting into scaling the organization because the mistake that many founders make and many sole traders and business owners make is that in the name of working hard, your
Mm,
very hard work is what is keeping
mm,
your organization small.
right.
Um, One of the things my CEO used to say was, let's make the money first. If we can make the money first, trust me, we can sort out the
The
lease,
rest of the
we can
things,
sort
we can
out the
sort out
leave days.
finance, we can sort
Correct.
out all of the other administrative things. But when we get the
Correct.
sales first, we are in.
So
Ah,
someone needed to intervene to actually stop me from continuing to do what was my previous role because of my new role.
in hindsight, right? That what the um MD did for you, right? A
Yeah,
founder is trying to do for themselves. What would you
yeah,
advise them? You've grown this organization to where it is now. Uh, Now there are people in it, right? But you still feel like no one can do it the way that you can. I mean, the exec PA that you had hired, you felt like because you knew it was easy for you to get onto until the systems were locked, right? So,
yeah,
how do I
yes.
lock my own systems for me to have that mosaic view instead of the Joshua sort of view?
So what I would say is that delegation brings scale um, at the assumed expense of perfection. What I mean by that is the people who
Mm.
are now doing the work are going to make mistakes. They will make more mistakes than you ever would. But there is no perfection in remaining small. You would rather attain the perfection of
Ooh,
scale than attain
hey,
the perfection of solid systems of a small company.
my goodness. I think you have quotable quotes like three or four already. The first one is delegation brings scale at the assumed expense of perfection. I think
Yes, sir.
that's clear. That what you think is the perfection that you were bringing along in operations now is compromised when you delegate.
Mhm.
But something new begins to happen. There's a shift that begins to happen on a scale. Scale is perfecting itself while operational excellence, in your view, is being compromised.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow.
I
Wow.
would rather have a perfectly scaled organization than a perfect operation that's not scaling.
Come on. Come on, this is this is the heart of what we are talking about. Let it
Mm.
scale,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
and move on than
yeah,
keep it small and perfect
yeah.
in its
And
small impact.
it's so counterintuitive, Uno, because
Mm.
sometimes you're gonna be playing paddle or playing golf or networking while you have 6 months of supply invoices that you haven't captured in your system. Listen, they're on the bank statement. When we make the money, we will capture them, or better yet, we'll hire someone to do it. But to sit as a founder and be capturing supplier invoices in your system so that you can see how much money you're not making instead of going out there to meet people
Hey.
and make the actual money is counterintuitive but necessary.
Right. So counterintuitive. You are so right. Um, and I've seen this. I mean, the administrative operational work is so tempting because
Yeah.
it works on your psyche of the hard worker in me must get these things out of the way. But that is not the
Exactly.
work that's going to bring the scale change that
Exactly.
you need, right?
Exactly.
Going to
Exactly.
play and connect. Also
Exactly.
sounding like you're running away from actual work that is
Yes.
hard is super
Yes.
counterintuitive.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So,
So I've learned to prioritize impact over the feeling of impact, accomplishment over the sense of accomplishment. When you sit at your desk and you do cross the T's and dot the I's, you've got a sense of accomplishment. But real accomplishment is going to a business speed dating event that will take you out of your comfort zone, but that will either give you ideas, give you clients, give you collaborators, give you friends for the journey, give you encouragement to see that you're not the only one trying something hard. It's like you said, it's counterintuitive, but that is real accomplishment.
mm, 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 mm. Okay.
Because if you think about it, really
Mm.
the who you can become is greater than what you can do. So when given a choice between doing and becoming, become. Because if you can become, there is no limit to what you can do. But there are certain things that no matter what you do or how hard you do it or how long you do it, it by virtue of the fact that you are not present where you're supposed to be becoming, you will be a village champion.
You must write a book tomorrow, my friend. Tomorrow. Ah, the work of becoming versus the work of doing.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
so it also speaks to a level of personal development that you must be looking at and when you're moving from, one position to the next. So yes,
Yes,
then
sir.
what happens? I want to keep the story going. And how do you finally become the MD of the organization?
So unfortunately, that great man that I've been talking about all along
Yeah.
passes away suddenly, beginning of last year, this time. And out that there was a succession plan in place.
Hmm.
And this succession plan had me at the helm of the organization. So I continued in the role of GM, but now running the entire organization top down, in a similar model to how I became GM in the first place, where the
Hmm.
pattern of the work occasioned the title. So, in my
Hmm.
continued work as GM to keep the ship afloat, to reassure the clients, to consolidate the operation, to cause it to become lean and efficient, to take out the noise out of the system, to cause the team to focus on what are our key deliverables and imperatives, to overperform so that the assumed notion that now that the founder is no longer around, the quality of this is going to deteriorate. All of that, including accommodating time to be the face of the company, whether it was, invitations to speak at different places like the manufacturing Indaba, whether it was attending EU investor summits in Zimbabwe last year, whether, all the work that I was doing to say, listen, we are here and we're not going anywhere by pattern of behavior, it stopped making sense for me to show up on these platforms
Yeah.
and be the GM as though there is still a decision maker above me that this conversation is not final. So there was a necessitation that for the sake of the continuity, the viability of the business, and ongoing stakeholder engagement, whether it's new clients, new partners, new collaborators, they needed to know that they're talking with the person who is running the show, quote and unquote, obviously with the help of my team. But
Right.
that's what necessitated the change in title. It wasn't the title first because our owner is gone. It was that's what the occasion demanded. So
Mm,
towards the latter end of 2025, we then made that transition to say, okay, Tim, let's formalize the title MD.
right, right. I think we can
Yeah.
learn a lot about scaling and delegation from your former boss, indeed, because the fact
Sure.
that he had a succession plan in mind, the fact
Yes, sir.
that from the very time he saw you, he picked someone that he could see had potential, are some of those things that one has to do. And the one part you mentioned now that says title didn't, uh, you know come first. It was the work that came first. And when the work
Yes,
was
sir.
proven, then title came, becomes one of the ways in which, scaling becomes a lot easier because, in companies, in the work we do, we find that there are people who are title hungry.
Yes, sir.
Who are power hungry, and you give those,
Yes, sir.
they're not necessarily give you the scale that you need, but people that are
Mm.
brought up and can, are versatile and can do more things are better. Okay,
So,
so you're doing all of this
yes, sir.
work with maybe, okay, before we close off the Cyberweb conversation, what kind of problems do you guys solve and how big are you now? Tell us a little bit about Cyberweb.
So we are approaching 10 million a year. We're still
Hmm.
very much in the SME space.
Hmm.
But yeah, we've been bigger before. Then COVID
Hmm.
came. Then now it's about how do we reestablish ourselves in the economy of tomorrow.
Hmm.
Um, and that involves pivoting away from a generic vanilla offering IT where the competition is high, but the
Hmm.
competency, dare say, sometimes is low,
Hmm.
where people are literally undercutting each other, having lost leaders, selling products at a loss to take your client away from you and get it on the upside, where people
Hmm.
are compromising client
Hmm.
systems to maximize on profit.
Hmm.
It became a messy, murky world that we still involved in it. Look, some of our biggest clients are still your traditional outsourced IT, but we're looking to specialize in cyber resilience through consulting. So whether it's training the human firewall, people are the biggest vulnerability. We do staff training. We offer technology that secures your IT environment, your OT environment. That means operational technology, your factory floor. We offer compliance policy services to say if you're subscribed to an ISO that is industry standard or an IATF requirement, if you're in the automotive industry, for example, we are those people that you are your partners in securing business continuity and keeping your company as efficient as it can possibly be through a lean and honest to God IT operations. So that's kind of the work that we're busy with at the moment. And it's an exciting space to be, I can tell you. And we look forward to what the future holds.
Okay. Okay. And in terms of employee base, how big is your team?
We have a team of about, I would say about 12,
Hmm.
about three in admin, and I think the rest are probably your technical engineers, then
Sure.
one or two
Sure.
people in sales. But
Mm.
part of the leanness that I was seeking to establish when I came to the helm was to outsource what is
Absolutely.
not our specialization. So outsourcing HR, outsourcing to a large extent a lot of the financial or accounting functions and so forth. So I
Right.
think that's another lesson for entrepreneurs that sometimes
Mm.
outsourcing so you can focus and hone in is money well spent, you know. I know we
Absolutely.
watch every rand, every dollar, every euro as it walks out the door that is it deriving benefit for the company, but I've seen that one of the best things you can spend in is in affording yourself time to ideate, time to expose yourself to new markets, new people, new technology. And I think that has part of been my operation to say, what can we do in-house? What should we outsource? And how can we run this operation as lean as we possibly can?
Fantastic. Hmm.
Yeah.
And so, in doing all of this, you are
Mm.
also a man of God. You're a pastor.
Yes, sir.
Um, I mean, a regional pastor overseeing, Cape Town and Joburg branches that are taking shape.
Yes, sir.
How did that come about?
I was minding my business,
Hmm.
just trying to come back to the Lord from years in the wilderness, as it were, and ended up in a very small church, which is what I needed at the time for accountability, for a community, for fellowship, and for intentional growth, discipleship. There was a leadership upheaval, if you will. Some people left, and was it a case of musical chairs that everyone got to sit down and be a congregant, and I was left standing? We will never know. But for whatever reason, the overseer of the global vision looked at me and said, "You're the next pastor of this church." I'm just a sound guy. I'm just, a young, zealous person in the church. I knew I was passionate about the word of God, but never to think I could pastor people. In fact, I'm sure my relatives today will confirm that they were very skeptical about the integrity of the church, who would appoint such a young person to lead a
Hmm.
fellowship. I'm talking some
Hmm.
families, you had a daughter, a mother, and their mother in the church. So three generations entrusted to a 26-year-old. I've been thrust into
Hmm.
very demanding leadership roles
Hmm.
from an early age in my adulthood, if I can put it that way. Because remember, I never had leadership roles in school. And I think I've then been forced to swim upstream to say, like Solomon in the Bible, who can lead a people as great as these? Give me wisdom. And God has been
Hmm.
faithful in furnishing me with willing people,
Hmm.
furnishing me with resourced people, furnishing me with direction. Even the decision to leave Cape Town and come to Joburg was very, very counterintuitive. I mean, to this day, there are people who would do anything to move from Joburg to Cape Town. So there's been a lot of what God has been doing that only makes sense in hindsight. And and
Yeah.
and beginning to pastor was definitely one of those things because I was never looking for it or thinking I was
Hmm.
cut out for it, but it
Hmm.
literally found me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so doing both of these, I mean, I see your schedule now that I know what you are involved in.
Yeah.
It sounds like quite some demanding work. How do you manage both and how do you manage your time around both, Cyberweb and God's favorite house?
Um, I've got a I've got a very deep answer to that, but at the
Mm,
risk of losing some of my audience and to be at risk of being misunderstood, I will give you a more practicable answer to that. Very early on in my journey, I discovered the difference through some material between the way an ox works and the way a lion works. And that's really helped me because um, an ox will slave out the entire day until the master says enough. And tough life, you know, have beef of a cow which or an ox which worked hard all its life, you won't enjoy it. Um, and that kind of mentality does not allow for whether it's bivocational or pursuing different endeavors because you will never have the time or the energy. You will never be able to show up authentically because your mindset is the mindset of I always need to be working or seen to be working. That's a very dangerous
Oof,
mentality.
oof.
So once I divorced myself from that kind of thinking, and looked at working from the perspective of impact-based work, like the lion mentality. Lions, they sleep and they sprint. They sleep and they sprint. So when there is no pressure, when there's no work, you will find me on the golf course. You will find me working from home, literally sometimes even in bed. My colleagues should not watch this, but there's no pressure. There's nothing I'm busy with right now. So I'm not going to um, create a facade of I'm busy. The weekends I'll work the entire weekend. There are Tuesdays where I'm actually not in the office. So I've learned to sprint and rest. When the occasion demands, I show up, I'm 100%, I get things done. But when it's a quieter season, I allow myself to breathe. I walk slowly. I absorb everything. I enjoy the days. You know what I mean? So I think that's really that has really helped me to manage because another thing I wanted to say to you is that at the beginning it was hard because I was trying to find balance. But then thankfully, learning through my pastor, senior pastor, the balance is a myth, you see. Balance is a myth. What I strive for now is harmony. And I think I've shared this with you before, Uno. When you've got a musical ear, you can hear when things are off tune. So I bring
Mm,
that same ear to my life that in
mm,
every endeavor that I'm involved in, there must be harmony,
mm,
there must be
mm,
an interconnectedness. These things must be working together. So, for example, if I don't have a busy morning and there's someone I need to go pray for in ICU, I don't say, oh, I'm going to see them after work because why am I going to work if there's nothing imperative that needs me at work when
mm,
someone's in ICU?
mm,
Do you see that? So at the
mm,
beginning of my journey, I would have still seen that person after 5 because I'm saying I'm at work.
mm,
But
mm,
now, if I'm needed for something
mm.
that requires a sprint now, I'm there because that's what's creating the harmony. So I try live off this harmony so that even my longevity is not compromised in the name of scale or building.
Right, right. Hmm, that is powerful. Ox and a
Yeah.
lion.
Yeah.
Give us the deeper bit that you have reserved for us. Why I'll push back.
Okay, so there's what is referred to as a tired anointing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, you've taken us here. There's what is referred to as a tired anointing. I learned it through my good friend, Apostle Tom,
Mm,
where great men, great women, people of exploits are generally not, I wouldn't say always tired, but they are they wouldn't qualify as the people getting too much rest, to put it very politely. They are resting, but they're resting functionally. So when you look at their schedules, just by looking, at their schedules, you feel yourself getting tired or getting drained, but
Mm.
they live in those schedules. So because they live in them and those schedules have become a part of them, they've become high impact people. So their mode of operation there is productivity. They don't have another mode per se. So even if they are not necessarily at their desk, in their mind, it's ideation, it's imagination, it's strategy, the conversations that they're having, they're always at it. So we call it a tired anointing because some days you look and they'll look completely out of it and it's the end of the day, but they're telling you that, oh, tomorrow we're starting again at 4 a.m. and tomorrow 4 a.m. they'll be there, they will show up, they will do what needs to be done, and that day could last until 10 p.m. the following day. But they are what the occasion demands because they carry a grace that is not incapacitated by tiredness. They have gone beyond the realm of feelings and
Schedules and
counsel, if you will, concerning
mm,
how one should live their lives. They are now given to
mm,
this thing, and and you will see it at professionals at the highest level. You know what I mean? So check any fields. Those professionals at the very highest level carry this interesting trait where you find some founders worth billions, but they sleep at the office. You will hear stories of neurosurgeons who are in 18-hour surgeries. I mean, how do you explain something like that? You see, so that's essentially
mm,
what that's all about.
it's a flow state,
Yes, sir.
and it's continuous because of
Yes,
that.
sir.
And how does one get into that kind of flow? Do they does it just become in which space do you find yourself in that state of productivity where time loses its you know not say its value but its traditional value in the sense of I'm working and I'm resting.
I think it's important for it not to become idolatrous. It's important for it
Mm,
not to become the source of an ego trip. So, to give you
mm,
a simple answer, it would be find something bigger than yourself that's worth living for.
100%. Something
Yeah.
bigger than yourself
Yeah.
worth
It can't
living
just be the
for.
bottom line. It can't just be profit. There has to be something bigger than that undergirds your motivation, your achievement, your ethic, your decisions, your yeses, your nos. It's the governing principle. And in fact, when you yield yourself to it, it actually draws itself, it draws you to itself, and it also it empowers you in a strange way. It's the work of grace, right? Because it makes you
Mm,
willing and it makes you
mm,
able because you've given
mm,
yourself to it.
mm. It's almost like the purpose now drives you, and the why is clearer and stronger. The how is
Yes,
kind
sir.
of easier for you.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
mm, mm. And maybe second last question. If I want
Sure.
to get into that place of purpose, get into that bigger than myself kind of why, what feelers should I be looking for as an individual that kind of indicate to me, the bigger why that I must give myself to?
Sure. I think I like traversing from the unknown to the known.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some things that you don't know to ask or you don't know to do because you're unconsciously incompetent. Because,
Right.
someone has spoken about the four stages of learning: unconscious
Mm,
incompetence, conscious incompetence,
mm,
conscious competence, unconscious competence. So, yeah, if you're still
mm.
unconsciously incompetent, in other words, you don't even know what you should be doing or what you should be pouring yourself into,
Right.
start with what you know. Lean into your giftings. Lean into your gifting.
Mm,
As you lean into your
mm.
giftings, as you one pastor was talking about how we've been taught to to work on our weaknesses. And to a point that is correct. I mean, you don't want to be leaking virtue the whole time. But his point, which I found was very excellent, was that rather have strong strengths. If you
Mm.
have really, really, really strong strengths, they will consume your time. You will not, there will be no surface area for your weaknesses to
They
take
will
hold of.
consume even your weaknesses. They will consume the
Exactly.
strength out of any weak spots in you.
Precisely.
Mm.
So lean heavily into your
Mm.
giftings for starters. Start there. And
Mm.
then as you lean into them, my experience and my observation is that different doors and different options and different opportunities and different rooms begin to yield themselves to you because that thing which you're good at is something that sets you apart, meaning that you are not in a rat race, you're actually in a low traffic lane because it's a lane of some are planes, some are ships, some are boats, some are submarines, some are cars, some are in that lane, there's no traffic because what makes traffic is a cookie cutter scenario where it's car after car after car. But if it's a car going
Mm.
in the same direction as a plane, how can there be traffic there? So I'm not sure I quite unpacked that as well as I would have liked to. But the idea is that if you lean into your giftings, um, you will much quicker get to what you should be giving yourself to much faster than just leaning into survival, for example.
100%. That's a
Mhm.
topic of discussion for another day, definitely. Getting into all of that to see. Two more questions for you. One
Sure.
is so what do you consider to be the most important skill in leading a business and why? And then the second one is where to from here? What do you look for both Sybaweb and God's favorite house and for your inner giftings? What's in the
Sure.
horizon?
I'd say the most important skill is hmm, compassion.
Hmm.
Compassion. Compassion births the miraculous. Compassion allows you to see people when others just see money, see opportunity. Compassion allows you to stay ethical. Compassion allows you to live authentically. Compassion allows you to lead with a heart and not just your head. When someone tells you they're sick, you're not saying when are you coming back to work, you're saying to them, how are you actually doing? Compassion, you can never go wrong with compassion. And I think whether it's compassion for your staff, compassion for your customers, passion for your product or your service, you can never go wrong with compassion. So I would put that word right up there in a key virtue. And I mean, what's next? No, that's actually a very interesting question, especially some of the thoughts that I've been thinking to myself in the last few weeks, specifically concerning King David. Because when you look at his
Hmm.
life, how would you define him? Was he a prophet? Was he a warrior? Was he a minstrel? Was he a priest? Was he a king? You could go on and on. And I think for me, what is next is investment in self, putting myself out there and continuing on a journey of self-discovery because I know
Hmm.
that that journey will lead me into the next room, the next deal, the next opportunity,
Hmm.
which may or may not be in the
Hmm.
space that I'm in. I'm very
Hmm.
as much as I love cybersecurity. If you find me tomorrow and I'm doing logistics or commodities
Hmm.
or trading, don't be surprised because
Hmm.
I'm leaning into that self-discovery and that ability to fully ventilate all the virtue that has been deposited in me, that wherever that virtue and the instruction and the leading leads, I'll find myself there. And one thing is for sure,
Mm.
I aim to be what the occasion demands.
Hmm. Tim Gambiza,
Yes, sir.
Pastor Tim Gambiza.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for coming to On a Grand Scale. This
Thank
has
you, sir.
been such a wonderful podcast. There's so many gems, so many quotable quotes. And to our listeners and followers on a Grand Scale podcast, please do remember to click the link and say follow for more of these meaningful conversations about scaling. Today is definitely one of them. I would encourage you to, you know, listen to this one 2 or 3 times, because if you've got one thing from one, I'm sure the second time you get it, you will get another revelation out of this. Thank you very much, Pastor Tim, for coming to On a Grand Scale podcast.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.